You're working with like software engineers that work at Microsoft that are just there to freaking get some movement in, and like now you're training. You said military police.
Yeah, and so feeling like you're getting what you want, and I'm going to show you also what things that I believe you need and can also help you get stronger, stay stronger.
Like they see more value out of them coming to you than the eggshells that they have to walk on with their training.
Exactly.
Yeah, dude, you see how you got stronger here, or you see how your shoulder got more stable, or you see how like you got into that couch position easier this time. Like, let's focus on that.
What is one thing that you think the average gym goer is missing?
Dude, stoked to have Nathan in the house, man.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks, man.
Welcome, Nathan, to the Fit for Purpose podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, dude. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so you're a trainer here in the Valley, and how long have you been personal training?
It'll be 8 years now, in last month.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, where did you? What would you say influenced your decision to get into that as a field, as a career for you?
That's a good question. I like that question. Honestly, a lot of my clients will ask me a similar question, but I think for me, like, it probably started like when I was 17 in high school, and I was a senior, and didn't make the baseball team my senior year, and so I was like discouraged by that, of like told I wasn't strong enough and big enough, and so I made the purposeful goal of like, okay, well, I'm going to show my coach how much bigger and stronger I can get. And then honestly, probably not even six months after I started doing that more seriously, I was realizing that I didn't care so much about proving to my coach that I was getting bigger and stronger. I was more so like realizing, I'm actually just wanting to take care of my body more too. And at the time I was working out at Lifetime Fitness in Gilbert, and I just like would fantasize of like, man, how cool would it be to wear like Lifetime Fitness suit and just like hang out and talk about weights all day and just hang out in the gym setting. And like I kind of fantasized about that and told my parents about it, and they're like, yeah, that'd be a good starting job. And I was like, no, that's like the end goal for me. Like I just want to do that and keep doing it. And
Let's go.
My parents were like, well, you got to go to college. And so for me, I was like, well, I don't really care about anything else right now other than working out. And so I went to my advisor at MCC, and I was like, hey, like this is the stuff that I'm interested in. I already have the general ed courses done. You know, like you could do exercise and wellness was the degree that ASU offered. And so initially I went for exercise science, and I took an engineer's calculus class and just failed it horribly.
That was in the exercise science program?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's in the exercise science program.
Dude, you're doing like calc and chemistry and
organic chemistry and
physics, you name it.
Yeah, it just like that stuff didn't appeal to me. I've always been a very like practical thinker in terms of like what I apply and focus my effort on. And so for me, I was like, this just doesn't really make sense to me. And so they're like, well, you also have exercise and wellness. And the difference is that you learn about healthy behavior change, exercise testing, and prescription. So she was going through basically a list of the classes that ASU offered once I got my associates done. And I was like, that sounds like it's more down my alley, because these are practical classes that I can apply to what I want to do. Like learning about the histology of cells is not going to get me or make me become a better trainer. At the time, I thought that, and I was 18, 19. And yeah, to kind of wrap up that point is, once I got done with my degree at ASU, I was like, yeah, this is definitely something I want to do for a while. And especially with like healthy behavior change, learning about motivational interviewing, empowering your clients and getting them to open up more to you was something that I realized I explored a lot on my own. And to be able to have someone guide you through that is like that felt like an honor for me to do. And so to me, that's kind of how I approach training in a holistic sense of like, not just can you get stronger, can you deadlift your body weight, can you lose 15 pounds, can you fit into this dress? Like that'd be great if I can help you do that. But more importantly, I want to help you develop and build confidence in yourself through the gym, through exercise, and then see where do you want to take this in the rest of your life, right? Like, do you want to take this with recovery? Do you want to take this with your relationships with your significant other, with your parents, with your siblings, with yourself? Because those are all different avenues that I've learned to explore from the approach that I've taken with exercise. And so, I mean, it's ultimately personal training to me is still a sales job at the end of the day, and that we are luxury when it comes to our service, right?
True
Like
that.
not anyone can afford personal training or at least high quality training. And so I try to take that not lightly. I try to be mindful of that when my clients are paying more than $100 an hour to see me, and I don't want to waste their time. And so it's easy for me to stay ahead of the curve or proactive with, okay, what am I educating myself on now? What am I trying to improve on in terms of what I can deliver and help my clients with? And that's kind of where I see like myself with like, I don't know what else I would want to do. This just makes so much sense to me of like how my personality works, how my behaviors are, what my mannerisms are, what matters to me, and then how can I convey that to people that are willing to pay a service to have me help them.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's it sounds like a typical I noticed this arc of a lot of personal trainers or people that are in the gym or like interested in fitness and getting more jacked.
This is Batman origin story. Is that what you're saying? I'm just kidding.
But the arc is like I was insecure about something.
Yeah.
And then I started working out to like cover up that insecurity. Yeah. And then, but then you also like when you put effort into getting bigger, getting stronger, changing what you eat, and then you start to see changes in who you are based on the actions that you're taking, then yeah, you start to build confidence. You realize that you have some like power and control over the direction of your life or like what's happening. Like not everything's happening to you, but you get to kind of decide a little bit. And then if you fall in love with it enough, the other side of that arc is you stop caring so much about like your physique or like just being big and strong, and you are more interested in the wellness aspect of it and wanting to like share that with others and kind of share that experience that you've had with how it's improved your life with other people. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to work in a lot of different gyms too over those last 8 years. And I try not to view that as an insecurity of like, well, I was only here for this amount of time and then I was here for this amount of time. And instead of approaching it from that angle, it's more of like, okay, well, those were different chapters in my journey of what I wanted to learn about personal training. When ultimately, like when I left the commercial, or not the commercial, the private setting at Funk Fit with you, I was like, okay, now I want to see that at a larger scale and experience that. Initially, what my first thought was working at a Lifetime. So instead, I found a gym called Pro Sports Club in Washington, worked there for 2.5 years, and it was the largest private gym in all of the Northwest between Washington and Oregon. And so when I got there, I go from a studio with, we had 3 trainers, 4 trainers, 4 coaches, to 120 trainers at one location. Crap. And they had 3 locations. So quickly I realized like, oh, now I'm kind of more of a number, but they have such a efficient feeding system of getting me clients through Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Amazon. And these are all people that are engineers and people that make a lot of money. So I don't have to worry about trying to get them on like, hey, I know it's expensive, but you should come train with, like, they're not worried about the money piece. So it actually allowed me to focus more so on like, okay, well, what kind of training can I offer them outside of like, I'm going to teach you how to squat correctly. I'm going to teach you how to hinge correctly. Like those are definitely pieces of it, but it's more so of like, okay, how can I exemplify how my personality has been molded through my journey of exercise? How can I convey that through a way of how I communicate a warm up? Like what's my approach to the warm up? And so I've probably told you this a million times, but also like for you, Brandon, is like for me, everything is around like a why. Of like, okay, well, what are we warming up for? Okay, we're doing lower body stuff, so let's like mobilize the hips, let's warm up the trunk, and then let's get the core firing. Okay, now let's start getting some blood flowing and the heart rate up. Now let's do something explosive to excite the nervous system. Okay, now we can attack it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm not telling my clients all of those steps, right?
Sure.
In my head, I'm going through that, and I'm trying to think of, okay, how can I exemplify or convey this in a very simplistic way where it doesn't seem like I'm trying to overdo communicating like I know all of this stuff. It's just like, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to focus on. Here, let's start here, and then let's move forward. So for me, it's fun because you can, with personal training, and my approach is like I can start with like, okay, I'm going to do the warm up. I'm going to do these mobility drills. I'm going to do this to get their blood flowing, get their heart rate up, excite the nervous system. So it's like this has become so automatic to me that now at this point I was like, okay, we're going to do trunk rotations. While they're doing that, like, hey, what'd you do last night? How'd you sleep? Like, did you have breakfast this morning? How much water have you had since you woke up? It's like, these are kind of common questions that can be molded into a conversation, but it's also helping me gather data on, okay, they didn't sleep very well. They're still kind of stressed about yesterday. They've only had coffee, which is a lot of my clients in the morning, and they're just starting to drink water. It's like, okay, let me make sure I take my time ramping them up. I'm not just gonna be like, okay, we did 2 mobility drills, jump on the bike and start sprinting. Like, let's slowly get them there. And again, I'm not telling them that, but I'm being proactive of like, okay, well, I do want them to deadlift today, but they haven't felt good. So let's get them moving like with some glute bridges or something, and then get them on the assault bike. And then when they get off the bike, if I see that they're breathing heavy and they like seem exhausted, then it's like, okay, let's probably not deadlift today. Let's just have them do a different hinge motion. And so it allows me that time to be able to pivot with what my program is for that client.
Yeah, they say that is like the sign of like a great trainer is you're not stuck to the program. You're engaged with the person, right?
100%.
Like you have to be able to adapt the plan to fit whatever the mood is that's being brought in for the day. So, dude, props to you to be able to like recognize that stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, that goes a long way because that is like the back end of like training that I think people on the outside don't see. It's like, oh, you're seeing a trainer. Well, like you should be getting results, right? You should be going in there and every single day they're crushing your soul. And it's like, dude, half the time, like I'll have a client who like called out sick and then they show up the next week and it's been 6 days since they've worked out. And when they come in, they were sitting at a desk all day and they're feeling kind of sluggish. And it's like, yeah, we're not going to PR your 2 rep max here. Like it's going to look very different. So yeah, it's a huge component that people don't recognize of our field.
Yeah. There's so many variables that you're tracking and then assimilating into your mind and then executing within the workout and the session. So you have an idea of kind of what you want to do for the session, and then you have to flow with whatever's happening and however that client shows up in front of you. And then you're tracking like 18 different variables and points of data and like taking in all these considerations of, okay, where is this person at and how can I meet them there and then give them the most effective session without hurting them.
Exactly.
And my brain, I always have these like stupid analogies, but I was thinking about like,
Hit us.
We're like the fitness version of like Jarvis from Iron Man. We're just like, I just had that picture in my mind where it's like,
so taking that.
Isn't that crazy?
So good.
You're calculating like, I don't
Yeah.
know, when you spoke something into existence.
You're like that meme with the girl with the whiteboard. She's like doing math. Like
For sure. Yeah. Nathan, you kind of like briefly discuss like some of where you've been, but talk about kind of your journey from like place to place and maybe some of the learnings you've taken along the way. And even now you're with PFS, is it called? And you guys specialize in like even sports training specifically and stuff like that too. So would love to just hear of where your journey's taken you and the places you've been. And
yeah. Oh yeah, man. Absolutely. I mean, so my first personal training job was at UFIT actually. And I was 21. It was on Scottsdale Road and Thomas. I'll never forget. I like had my first client was at 5 a.m. and I like living with you and Ryan and Tempe, and I was like, dude, I don't want to do this. So I'd like wake up super early, go train the client, come back, sleep for 2 hours, and then go to school, and then come back, and then go work at GNC, and then come home, then go work out, and then come home, do homework, go to bed, rinse, cycle, repeat.
oh my God.
And at the time, it's like it didn't register to me of like how many things I was trying to balance. To me, I was just like, I want to get in the field of personal training and I want to expose myself to everything I can. And to go even further back from that, when I started school, when I started college, I was 18 and I worked front desk at a gym called Fitness Works on Wrecker and Brown. So it's like super far east Mesa. And that was it. I was like, I just want to get in a gym. I'm going to start working front desk, greeting people, checking them in, calling people if they have overdue memberships or whatever. Like it was the classic story of like, I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. And then after that, they're trying to groom me into a salesperson. And then when I realized how many like cold calls I needed to make and what kind of approach to getting memberships, I was like, yeah, that's not the route I want to do. And so now fast forward, I'm at UFIT. And then one of my old coworkers from Fitness Works was the one that got me the job. And he was hyping me up a lot to the training manager of like, Nathan's a wolf. This dude's this dude's a dog. He's gonna sell memberships.
He's someone a wolf is wild.
I'll never forget. I was like, I've never
Go
been compared to a wolf. I'm 6'2", like 170 pounds. Like,
Don't oversell me.
it's like I'm not an intimidating guy, but at the time I was already super excited about training. Right, I was 21. I'd been training seriously, you could say, for 4 years at that point. And by the time I was 21, I already done my first men's physique show. And the only reason that I had even chose to do men's physique was that I was like, I know ultimately with training, I want to be able to help guide someone through a nutrition program and through like tracking their macros and seeing, okay, can you still get stronger or at least maintain muscle while you're cutting? And so I was like, well, I got to do that myself then. This is my thought process. And then, so I had gotten that accomplished, got the job at UFit. I'm a wolf.
The wolf of UFit.
Yeah, if you don't know, guys, he's actually got a tattoo of a wolf on his back.
Yeah, this
now.
actually isn't a tiger. It's a wolf with stripes. But it's after 2 weeks of working at UFit, I was making $8 a session for 30 minutes.
Brutal.
$8 a session. And he's like, but at the time, minimum wage was $7.50. And so he's like, well, if you have back-to-back sessions, you're making $16 an hour. And my like spry green self at 21 was like, dude, $16 an hour. That's crazy. There's no way. And so, you know, I'm doing 10 sessions a week. And so my paycheck's like $200 if I'm going well. And so I'm doing that for part-time, working at GNC 20 hours a week, going to school full-time. And I'm like, I'm stretching myself too thin. What do I do? And I ended up quitting the job at UFit after 6 months. And really what kind of pushed me away from that was that at 6 months, initially when I got hired, they're like, we just want you to retain clients. We'll help you gather them, whatever, this and that. After the first month, the guy that thought I was a wolf was like, why aren't you selling memberships? And I was like, I don't know, man. You guys aren't really putting people in front of me, so I don't have the opportunity. He's like, well, then go work the floor. And I was like, go what? And he's like, go talk to people. He's like, you want me to go talk to people while they're working out and try and sell them training? And he's like, that's exactly what I want you to do.
Old school.
Like, literally old school. And I was just like, oh, okay. And like, I probably did it to like 4 people. And I was like, yeah, I was so nervous walking up to someone that was incorrectly doing lat pull downs anyways. But it's like, if I go up to them and be like, hey, I noticed you're doing that completely wrong. Can I help you? First session's on me. Like, that's such a terrible approach to offering your services to someone. And so it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I was like, damn, I don't know if this is like a job for me, if this is what personal training is about. So I just stuck to GNC. And like the silver lining of working at a supplement store for 2.5 years, you work alone and you have no music. So it's like, when there's no one in there, it's lonely.
Yeah.
And I'm just like checking expiration dates on products and just looking at bullshit that like doesn't matter to me. So like anytime someone would come in, I'm like, oh, thank you, human contact. Like it would be like, not only am I going to try and sell them, but I'm like, just stay in here. Like help me pass time. Like
Let me just talk to you.
Yeah. Like let me just interact. Like I'm so bored. And so it really helped me like hone in on that skill of like asking open-ended questions. And this was when I was at ASU at this point. So I was learning about motivational interviewing. How can I empower this person to feel like I am actually hearing them about, okay, you're in here to look at protein. Okay, well, why are you taking protein? Okay, why is this? So you can start to create almost like a web of like, well, I've asked them these questions and they told me this, and this is what they're in here for. How can I connect all of these together and then build a bigger basket, build a bigger sale? And so once I finished at ASU, I got the job at FunkFit. And I worked with you for 2 years. Or like a little
Something
over,
like that.
Yeah, a little over 2 years. You had already been there a year, and like after my experience at UFit, I was like, this dude's living the dream. Like he doesn't even have the degree, and he's like already balling. Like I was like, damn,
I was definitely balling.
Again, at the time, it's like it seemed like we were balling, right?
We were
It's like,
21, 22.
yeah, I was so used to only working 20 hours a week, and I was like, perfect. Like now I have my degree, and now I have my CSCS. Like all of the stars are aligning. Everything's perfect. I'm working like 20 hours a week, and I'm still barely making money for rent. So I start driving for Lyft. I'm like trying to find ways to make money. And I did that after 2 years. And after just like some disagreements I had with like how that business was being run, I decided to like move to Washington. And the only reason I chose Washington was I was like, that was the only gym that I saw that was available looking for trainers that offered 401k and salary for the first 3 months.
Oh, wow.
So they'd offered me like a salary, which was already more than I was making at FunkFit. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then they're like, yeah, we'll give it to you for 3 months. After 3 months, you're commission based. So like if you're making more commission than what the salary is, we'll take you off salary. You can make what you earn. And so it was a great incentive. It was a perfect program. And then as long as I was hitting, I think it was like 25 sessions or 20 sessions a week, I could maintain full-time status and still get benefits.
Wow.
That's a good setup.
That is
It
really
was a
cool.
really good setup.
Yeah, that's
It
a
was-
cool setup for
Pro Club is really like is a great gym. Like it's a lot of people have made careers there
Yeah.
that have been there longer than before I was there and that are still there now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I give them a lot of credit. But to kind of more directly answer your question, like with my journey of that Funk Fit initially, the reason I got my CSCS was like I want to work with athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to work with people that are trying to get better at a sport because I'm sure still in the back of my head at this point, my ego was like, you got to work with baseball guys, man. You didn't play baseball. Like, you got to go back.
You still got to
It's-
prove your high school
You
coach
still got to prove your high school coach
that you can fucking do it.
you said you don't care about. And so I was like, let me get my CSCS. That took me 3 tries to get my CSCS. I blame it on being a bad test taker, which is a poor excuse for saying I'm dumb. But I was like, I read that book from cover to cover 3 times.
Wow.
And I would just like get to the test and freeze. I'd freak out. I'm like,
Yeah.
all these answers sound good. Like you could make a case for all these
Sure.
answers. And so ultimately, like after I like checked that final box off, I was like, dude, I'm done with certifications. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm just going to use what I understand now and just fly with that. But by the time I got to Pro Club after I'd left Funk Fit, I had been exposed to 120 trainers
Mm-hmm.
that I was like, there was so many different avenues, PRI people, like competitive powerlifters, competitive CrossFitters, long distance runners, like you name it. There was a few trainers that specialized in that.
That's a huge jump from like being in a small gym studio
Yeah.
where there's 3 or 4 other trainers and you guys are you're all kind of being exposed to the same
That's what I was
same
going to say.
things, same
Yeah,
ideas.
Everybody's kind of in the same like network of skill base.
Yeah. Then you go to a place like Pro Club, there's 100 other trainers and
Yeah.
everyone's got different backgrounds. Everyone's been studying different methodologies and you're being exposed to all of that. So that's got to be a huge, kind of intimidating, but also a huge step up in a growth period for you as a coach.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's exactly like you said, it's a huge growth opportunity. And like, it was also, I knew at that point I was like humble enough to realize like, I definitely don't know as much as most of these people because some of these people have been at Pro Club longer than I've even been training. So it's like, who am I to say that I know more than them? So immediately I was like, I just need to start becoming a sponge again. Like I need to start like just taking in as much information as I can, asking as many questions as I can, gaining different perspectives. And that helps me tremendously because it's like, it taught me that like, I'm never going to know everything, first of all, but also like I have an opportunity to learn and be able to then again convey more information to my clients. To kind of go back what I was saying initially is like, I want to be able to serve my clients in as many ways as possible. And the best way to do that is exposing yourself to different modalities of training, different approaches. But the 2 people that I would say stood out the most to me were these people, Dan Stevenson and Tasha Whelan. And so they still actually work at Pro Club right now, both high-level competitive powerlifters. And Tasha deadlifted 500 pounds at 130 body weight. Like this girl is a phenomenal athlete. And then Dan, her boyfriend, now husband, was the same thing. Was pulling high 600, squatting 600 pounds, like benching 300, then benched 400. Like I got to watch the evolution of these already elite powerlifters that followed the conjugate method. For those that aren't familiar with that, is Louis Simmons, considered the powerlifting godfather. Was who created that formula. And so when I got there, I was like, I'm going to do another powerlifting meet because Jacob, David, and I had already done one. And it's the same thing. I'd done 2 physique shows and I was like, all right, now I need to do 2 powerlifting meets to like really get the understanding of how this sport actually works, what progressive overload looks like. And when Jacob and I did their first meet together, we kind of followed similar programming, I'd say. And
Together we followed similar programming or you're saying we
like
followed
prepping for the meet.
conjugate?
Prepping for that first meet.
Yeah, we did similar programming, but it wasn't conjugate style.
No.
Really.
So yeah,
Okay,
that's what I was going to kind of transition to is like the first one was very, I guess you could say traditional progressive overload of like start with like a hypertrophy phase, go down in volume, ramp up the intensity, do a deload week, go compete. Now at the conjugate method, it's varying, let me see, let's make sure I remember this wording correctly, but weekly undulating periodization. So basically what that means is like, every week you're going to do a different high stimulus movement for a different main lift. So in powerlifting, squat, bench, deadlift are the 3 lifts. And so you're centrating all of your programming around that, but with weekly undulating periodization, 1 week you could do like a top set of 3 on safety squat with 30% of your max in chains. And then you're just going to continuously add weight until you can't get 3 anymore. And then the next week you could do like a yoke bar or something And then I would do like a Zercher yokes deadlift. So it's like a yoke bar, or not the yoke bar, cambered bar, excuse me. So the cambered bar like rests on your shoulders, and then it's like probably 3 feet, 2 feet down, and then the weights come out on the side. So it's very lower. But basically I would do different variations of squat, bench, and deadlift. What I found, at least with my experience at that point, I didn't find myself getting much stronger going into the meet, but it was really, really cool to understand and like learn that firsthand of like, oh, this makes sense. Cause Dan, the one that was programming for me, I also worked with. So anytime I would follow one of his workouts, I could ask him a question in real time and get feedback right away. So it was such a cool learning experience for me. And then after Pro Club for 2.5 years, I went to the military and I worked with the Army for a year and coached strength and conditioning. And at the time I was like, dude, this is so sick. Like, it's going to be a great resume builder. I'll get to like learn like all of the ins and outs of how the military works. I can be a civilian that is on the inside with the Army. And then on my first day, I like go to meet my coach, who was a retired Ranger, Army Ranger. It's pouring rain. I'll never forget it. I like met him at the Starbucks on base, and I like go to the battalion that I was assigned, the 508th Battalion. So I was assigned to the Brigade of Military Police. So 42nd MP was the name of my brigade. And within that brigade, they had 2 battalions, so 508 and 504. 508 had 4 strength coaches, 504 had 4 strength coaches, and we were assigned companies of soldiers. And how that would work is within a battalion, there's 4 companies. Each company comprises of about 120 soldiers. So I was assigned 120 people to be responsible of. And I get to the battalion, and it's pouring rain, and he walks over to a giant shipping container. And I was like, what's this? He's like, this is your gym. And I was like, what? And he like gets a key, unlocks it, opens it up. Sure as shit, there's 4 rusted barbells. There's 3 hex bars. There's a ton of bumper plates all crammed in there. Everything's full of dirt and grass because I'm on a sidewalk that leads you to the building. So there's a sidewalk, there's gravel, and then there's a grass hill. And he's like, this is your gym. And I was like, this is what I have to train 120 soldiers. He's like, yeah.
Figure
and I
it
was
out.
like, but what if it's raining? He's like, it's raining right now. You think they fucking trained this morning? And I was like, did they? And he's like, yeah. So I was like, what? So I go from Pro Club, there's 120 trainers.
Lord.
This is a 300,000 square foot facility. It's like Hogwarts in there. It's 4 floors. It's so big, dude. Like, it's so massive. And then I move an hour and a half south to Tacoma, Washington, and go to a military base where now I have 2 pairs of kettlebells from 8 kilos all the way up to 24 kilos. Probably like 300 pounds of weights and rubber plates. And then I have like this janky ass like rack that's attached to the shipping container in the fucking rocks. It's like, this is what they squat on, dude, on the rocks. And he's like, yeah, I'll never forget. His name is Rich. He's just like pushing his feet on the grass. He's like, look, now it's fucking flat. And that's like, that's not how this works. So like,
Love it.
On day one,
That's
this guy,
awesome,
yeah, this guy's from New York, so he had like the aggressive New
That's
York
how it
accent.
works, dude.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
that's so
like,
good.
retired Army Ranger, and I was just like,
Damn.
dude,
So you go from this like bougie, nice gym,
You have
working with
everything you
people.
could ever ask for.
Yeah, you're working with like software engineers that work at Microsoft that are just there to freaking get some movement in, and like now you're training military. You said military police?
yeah.
Military police on base in the rain with like minimal equipment.
The worst setup. Like,
Yeah.
imagine
Damn.
a bad setup and then just subtract that, like cut that in half, and like,
So another huge point in your coaching career where you have to figure out, okay, this is what I have now, and I'm in charge of training 120 people.
yeah,
What do
5 days a week.
What do I do?
Yeah. And
Do you feel like it bestowed like a level of confidence in you though as a trainer that you would have never had if you didn't experience that? Like I'd imagine like you having to like be in that setting, everyone's reliant on you. These guys, if you even flinched, would shit on you.
100%.
Like it just seems like
100%.
you would another growth period like in an insane way to just be like, yeah, man, I know my shit now. Like I feel good. I don't know.
Yeah, give
absolutely.
me a couple barbells and and some kettlebells, and I can train anyone.
Dude.
Let's just like straighten out the dirt, push the
Yeah.
rocks
Dude, you
aside.
just gotta
Let's start
just like
squat.
Mike.
I'll never
get up
forget
in
when
there.
he just kicks the rocks. Is like, so just start squatting. He's
Now
like,
you
that's
can-
exactly right.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And
Sometimes we make it really complicated in some sense.
Dude.
Sometimes we do overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very simple way. So that was day one, and it's it was November in the Northwest, and so it's like
Brutal.
after September 21st, which is also my birthday, is the fall equinox, and they like after that the days just get shorter, right? Until I think it's December 21st.
It's cold. It's muggy. It's
Just there's just a blanket of gray over the sky. Not even that it's raining. It's just you don't even see the blue sky. Damn. And so like rain or shine, I gotta get there at 6. PT starts at 6:30. I have them till 8, and then it was a salaried job. So like we want you on base for 8 hours, but after 8 a.m. they have stuff scheduled the rest of the day because it's the military. So I was like, well, what do I do? They're like, well, just fill your time. And I was like, with what? And they're like, just start programming. I was like, programming for who? I programmed for the guys I just trained. They're like, we'll start asking them if they need individual programs. And I was having these flashbacks of being at UFIT of like, fuck, I don't want to work the floor. And I was like, I don't want to work the floor. And they're like, we'll go like down the hallway. Cause in the battalion, we had an office for the strength coaches. And then the rest of the building was where the soldiers work. And so I would just go in there and like no one gave a shit about me because I'm a civilian. I'm a 28-year-old civilian.
Haven't earned that respect yet.
I haven't earned their respect. They don't know who I am. They don't care that I have a degree. They don't care what certifications I have. They're like, what do you do? What do you actually do?
Yeah, everything about that is where you've been, what you've done,
exactly,
what you've seen.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's funny because there's even like this difference between enlisted and officers, right? It's like they have green belts for PT, the enlisted do, or sergeants do, and then yellow. And then if you're an officer, you have white, or I think it's just white. And so it's like, even when you're in your PT uniforms, you know if you're an officer or an enlisted. And so it's like the sergeants that have been there for 20 years and are enlisted still aren't making as much money as like a second lieutenant who's been in the military for 2 years, but they have a degree. And so they have more responsibility. So there's this kind of like jaded mentality. And this is not everyone in the military, obviously, but a good amount from my experience did have that. And so I was part of that same officer, kind of like, you have a degree, you can do whatever you want, like we're not going to listen to you. So anyways, like when I started training them, I quickly realized like I'm going to have to do some of these workouts with them, even in the rain. And so it's like also another prominent memory of mine. This is probably a month in. We were doing some kind of a workout, and at the end I was going to have them do a core finisher, because the whole premise of me being there as a strength coach was to help them improve their scores on the ACFT, so the Army Combat Fitness Test, where they have basically 6 physical feats that they need to be able to accomplish in either a certain amount of time, a certain amount of reps, or a certain amount of weight, right? So they have like deadlift, push-up, sprint, drag carry is one of them. A 2-mile run was that was like the kryptonite to their existence. So basically the military was transitioning into, if you can't pass the ACFT 3 times, and after 3 attempts, we're going to discharge you from the military. And so like we need to keep people. And in essence, that's when the holistic health and fitness H2F program was born. Strength coaches, PTs, all of like the wellness practitioners are now dive bombing into the military, and the military is like, get the fuck out of here, dude. We've been doing push-ups and sit-ups since the beginning of time. We don't need your help. And it's like, yeah, but 70% of you are injured, and 70% of you are getting disability because your knees are about to explode. Your back is completely like messed up. Like they're in chronic pain, but they're conditioned of like, when you get out of the military, you can get disability. So if you just suck it up and bite your lip hard enough until once you're out, you can just get 25% disability. So now you have a recurring $500 every month from the military for the rest of your life.
That's totally worth it. $500 to feel like shit. That's
exactly.
Sign me up for that.
Barely covering their like medical expenses, if that.
Yeah, not even. Yeah, so they're on this trajectory of just doing what they've been doing for the last 50 years, basic, like run a mile, do push-ups, do sit-ups, do jumping jacks. And then they start this program where you come in and they're trying to kind of get with the times and adjust their training program to be more updated, be more holistic. Exactly. And better prepare them for this ACFT, you said?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for getting me back on track with that. I was going on a tangent. But yeah, so they wanted me to do that, the ACFT, and essentially like they literally were doing push-ups, sit-ups, and running. Because I would ask, the main people of each company is a first sergeant, which is like one of the highest ranks of enlisted, and then a captain, which is a high rank as an officer. So every company has a first sergeant and a captain that leads that company. So I went to First Sergeant Fuentes, the guy that was in charge of mine, And he was like, yeah, just start training them. I was like, yeah, but how? And he's like, that's up to you to find out. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know. Like, there's sections within the company. So I was like, what sections do I train? He's like, that's up to you to find out. So literally everything was just a blank canvas. And I was like, well, now that I figured out, okay, I'm going to train these sections on Monday, Wednesday. I'm going to train these sections on Tuesday, Thursday. We'll do a sports day or a running day together on Friday. Now it's like, okay, so now I have the X amount of soldiers I'm supposed to see. We'll call it 40 on Monday, Wednesday. I'm supposed to see a different 40 Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday. And now it's like, okay, now I need to program squat, hinge, push, pull, lunge, core with just kettlebells, rushed barbells, and an uneven surface to deadlift on. So now it's like, and now how do I figure this out? And it's going back to the basics. So like, all right, now we're going to do isometrics. Now we're going to do slow eccentrics. Then we're going to do pauses. And then we're going to do some kind of conditioning piece at the end. And to kind of tie back around what I initially was going to start talking about was one of the days it was raining and I was going to have them do like, I think it was mountain climbers, push-ups, and then Russian twists. And so I was like, you guys know what mountain climbers look like? This is what it is. Push-ups, you know what it is? And I was like, and you know what Russian twists are? And I was like, I'm not going to get on the ground now. They're like, come on, do it. And it's pouring rain. And I'm like, no, I don't have any other clothes. They're like, fucking do it. No, like I was like, let's start. I'm starting the timer, and none of them sat down. They're like, we're not doing it until you show us.
Wow.
And so like literally like these people were like, you need to, if you want us to suffer, you got to suffer with us. So I was like quickly ingrained in my mind of like, okay, I really need to do this. And so then I would go sit in on the ACFT when part of my company would take it. And then they're like, coach, when are you going to do it? And I was like, I'm pretty confident I will do well. If I take the test, like I'll be okay. They're like, no, fucking do it. It's the same
Show
thing.
us.
They're like, show us. And so it was scored out of 500 points. So it must have been 5 things because each point or each section was worth 100 points. And then I ended up getting 483. I was 17 points off of like a perfect score. And then I show the thing to my first sergeant of like, see, like, do you guys trust me now? He's like, where are the other 17 points? I'm like,
yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
Like that was the most.
Where are the other 17
They will
points?
immediately
Dude?
go to the other.
It was the most militant answer. I was like, I can't even argue with that. I don't know.
Dude, you're right.
Yeah.
Shit.
I should be better.
I was all high
you're right.
mighty.
I should be better. Yeah. But it was,
Wow.
yeah, it's like, it's kind of like close that chapter. I was just like, okay, I did this I ended up only doing it for 10 months, I think.
So, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So what did you learn about structuring a program for that many people? With knowing what their end goal is with the fitness test, but you can't really in that situation you can't one-on-one coach them necessarily. You can't really be super nitpicky. So we know from a zoomed out view, what did you learn about programming in general and running a program with that many people and that little equipment? Like what did that teach you as a coach?
I mean, it taught me to just keep things much more simple. It's a very like classic answer, but ultimately like there's a lot behind what I mean with that. And to me, keeping things basic is like, okay, we're going to do a squat pattern, we're going to do a row pattern, and then a core, right? So like lower push, upper pull, and then reverse upper push, lower pull, and then some kind of like core piece. And I would give them what they want to. Like a lot of with training is like giving the client what they need and then giving them also what they want. Because then that way they feel like they're being heard and what else. So it's like we would still do crunches, we'd still do push-ups. I'd have them run around the building. But then it's like, okay, this is what a lunge should look like. Just do body weight. If you think it's easy, double the reps. Because for them, it's like more reps is better, right? So there's some things that like you have to learn to like, okay, your back is a little bit extended, your knees are kind of caving in, but where do you feel? Okay, you feel in your legs. Let's keep doing that. Just go a little bit slower. So it's like learning to do that. And the second piece toward the end of my time there was we were learning how to teach the sergeants to then program for them too, because the sergeants are the ones that have the respect. And so those are the ones that like the sergeants that were in charge of each section, I would actually go meet with them and I'd be like, hey, like, listen, this is what I have programmed for you guys for the next 4 weeks. What do you think about it? What questions do you have? What would you change? And I had to learn to like, this is fucking good, man. Like, don't try and change anything of like removing that piece of my ego and like, what do you think we should do? He's like, let's do more push-ups. Okay, cool. We'll do like an AMRAP of push-ups for 30 seconds for 4 rounds at the end of the workout. Perfect. Okay. So now I still have what I wanted to give to them. And then they're also getting what they think they need. And so that's where like
what they think they need.
Because again, it's like they're like, we're gonna do 100 sit-ups every day. Like, no, dude, come on. Like, let's just do like an EMOM of 15 sit-ups for 4 rounds, and then if you
100 every day.
Yeah,
Dude.
literally one of my sergeants was saying that. I'm like, dude, no. Like
Too much of anything is a bad
yeah,
idea.
man, like,
but that's such a skill to learn, to be open-handed about things, and to take your personal thing that you've crafted that you think is great, or whatever opinion we have of your thing, and just say, hey, like, I'm willing to put it up here and have you say what you will about it. Like, that's not something like we as humans learn really easy.
Yeah, man. But I mean, like, ultimately, like that experience in my life, or that chapter of my coaching career, was like, learn to practice what you preach. Learn to understand that, like, you don't need to explain everything that you know to everyone all the time. Because that was like, I was very jaded at like the first 3 months of like, dude, people were paying to see me. And now it's like, they don't pay to see me. The soldiers have to see me. So it's a chore to them. It's a task. And once they're in front of me, they don't have to listen. So that was the other thing, is I was like, dude, I'm thoughtfully programming something that you guys are just fucking off and not even caring about. And so I took that as offense, and I had to learn to remove myself from like, okay, it's not on me that they don't like. It's just that, like, they have an opportunity to not listen to someone for an hour, and they're going to take it. So it's like, I had to learn to be okay with that, and not let that show like, man, I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to prove you guys. Cause that was my old mentality of like, I'm going to prove to my coach that I'm getting stronger, that I'm getting bigger. And like, you have to learn to let that part of your ego die. And I've had to let it die again and again and again. I'm sure I'll have to let it die again at some point in my life, in my career. But that was like the biggest lesson I learned with working with the military, is like, it's okay to not have the respect of everyone that you have to be coaching. Just do your job to the best of your ability, and know that, like, whoever wants to listen will listen. Because I did break through a good amount of soldiers that they still follow me on Instagram. They'll reach out to me every now and then. Or they'll ask me questions. That was the funniest thing. When I left, I had like 2 sergeants messaging me, hey coach, what should I do with the soldiers? I'm like, I don't know, dude, it's not my job anymore.
I'm out.
You should
Out
have
of sight, out of mind.
You should have listened the last 10
I
months.
was there for
homie.
10 months, bro.
Yeah. I was like, you out of your tents. But yeah, that was a thing. And so now fast forward, I moved back to Arizona, and I didn't even have a job lined up. My contract was technically up because I started 2 months late, and like, do you want to stay? And I was like, no. And so I was like, I also learned that I didn't need to stay in Washington. Part of the reason that I left Arizona was I wanted to be able to learn how to live on my own, truly, away from my parents, away from my family, away from what I know to be comfortable. But at my time in Washington, I was like, man, I'm still talking to Jacob and Ryan all the time. I'm still talking to my parents. I'm still missing being around them. Yeah. And so it's like, again, I had to learn to like just let go of the fact of like, I've been here 3.5 years now. Like, I have an incredible community of people there that I still keep in contact with, that I was just talking to this weekend, that I've gone to my friends' weddings out there. Like, I'll always have roots there. But I just felt this big pull of like, you need to come back to Arizona. And I listened to that. And then one of my first mentors that I met at FunkFit, Matt Zabrowski, was like, hey man, you should come in and check out PFS. Like, I'm sure I could get you a job. Just come meet Brandon and Greg, the owners. So I went and met them, talked with them. They're like, yeah, man, like, it seems like you seem like a solid dude. Matt spoke very highly of you. We'd love to have you come in. And so when I get into PFS, what Greg asked me, one of the owners is a very pragmatic guy and very practical. He's like, what do you know about PRI? What are your backgrounds of like FRC?
What's PRI?
PRI is the Postural Restoration Institute. And so that's like an institution that's centrated around physical therapists, chiropractors, even dentists, and then trainers. And to me, PRI is more of a scope around how the axial skeleton, the pelvis, and the head sit and stack upon each other, and what an ideal frame of the axial skeleton looks like. And it's cool because it's a very scientific approach of like, physiologically, this is how our organs sit in our body, and physiologically, this is generally how one side of the rib cage is compared to the other, and this is how it affects movement and mechanics and gait pattern. And so it's, to me, is a cornerstone of what most coaches that want to take their training to a next level should at least educate themselves on, if not take the courses. And so they have 3 primary courses. They have postural restoration, myokinematic restoration, and then pelvis restoration. And so with those 3 courses, basically, if you take all 3, it outlines all of what PRI basically stands for, and what they believe to be true and accurate for how the body should move and how it can stack, basically. And so Greg's like, what do you know about PRI? What do you know about FRC, functional range conditioning? And then he saw that I had my degree, CSCS, whatever else. And he's like, take me through an assessment. And I was like, shit, a what? Like, I was just trying to like teach people how to like squat correctly in the rain on concrete. Like, now I got to run you through an assessment. And so it's like, he like gave me time, luckily ahead of time. And Matt was like, make sure you have something set up for an assessment. Like, just make sure like you know what you're doing. And so luckily I had taken 2 of the primary pre-RI courses at that point, and Matt was very graceful to help me out a lot. And that was one of the other subcategories of coaches at Pro Club, is that there was 4 of them that had taken all 3 primary courses multiple times. And so they were very well astute with like communicating this and like teaching me how to implement it and understand the influences and biases that people can tend to have whenever you're assessing them. So I kind of put them on the table, ran them through some hip extension, internal rotation, core activation, basic stuff that like I knew that what I'm looking for, what a pass is, what a fail is, and how to go whichever direction it is. If they pass 2 of the 3, okay, I'm going to take them this way. If they didn't pass any of them, let's start them on their back and start very basic. And so the coolest part of that whole experience was like, after I showed Greg the assessment, I was like nervous. I was like, shit, did I do good? And he's like, dude, that was really good. And he's like, you want to learn some shit now? And I was like, yeah.
That's
so
cool.
like for the next 2.5 hours, he's like, I really liked what you did with this hip extension drill, or like with this part of your assessment. Like, this is what I also like to do as well. And the way just that he communicated to me for the next 2.5 hours was never like, you did this wrong, do it this way. It was more so of like, I like your idea here. Let me just add a piece to it and give you my perspective. Now do what you want with that. And just right off the rip after that, I was like,
and it's like on his time, because at that point, it's not like you were a staff member.
Yeah,
like he's there just to interview you.
I'm not getting paid to do it. He's not getting paid to do that with me. He was
cool.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's a good point. And that was off that point, I was just like, yeah, I think this is going to be a good spot for me to learn. But yeah, so now that was October of 22. And then in November of 22, my first professional athlete reaches out to me on Instagram. His name's Stone Garrett. He was playing for the D-backs at the time. And I saw like a message in my inbox from a verified account, which has never happened to me. And he's just like, hey, I saw that you work at PFS. Like, I know that you guys know a lot about FRC and some of these other different places. Like, do you have any openings? I want to come do an assessment with you. And I was like, this is a joke. This is a bot. Like, there's no way. There's no way. And like, I go and check on his profile. He's already following me. And I was like, oh my God, dude, this is crazy. Like, this was like ultimately like what I wanted to do. Like, I have played baseball my whole life. Like, I've always thought that I'm going to be a strength coach for the D-backs one day. I'm going to do this. And like, no, man, like that was never meant to be my path. I understand that now. And like, that's what was really cool to me, is like, I don't have to take that path that I thought was the only way to doing ultimately what I wanted to do. Really, like, all I did this entire time at Pro Club, at Funk Fit, at the military base, now at PFS, was like, I just want to do what I enjoy doing and see where it takes me. And just like continuously having an open mind, continuously giving my best efforts and everything that I do is like, I really think ultimately what brought me to where I'm at today. And yeah, so that's
damn awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's powerful.
So you're still at PFS and you're working with baseball players. You also train some golfers as well.
Yeah, mostly golfers. I'd say 80% of my clientele either golf competitively or golf recreationally 3+ times a week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, with your time at PFS now, you've applied some of the things that you started learning at Pro Club, right? And you were just talking about the Postural Restoration Institute and some of the studying you've done through there, and how that's helped you be able to take care of these athletes in a more mindful way. How does your time at the military, like you were saying, having people that they weren't paying to be there, they were kind of forced to be there,
yeah,
right? So now you as a coach, you can't, in that situation, you can't just like show up and just expect them to do what you want them to do. You have to coach.
You're
right?
talking about here?
No, I'm saying in the military.
Oh, yes.
So there's these 2 parts to coaching. It's what do you know? How much do you know? Yeah. And then how do you relay that information or motivate someone to actually do it? Right? So, how does that, your time at the military, of you having to show up and coach and be really mindful of how you're showing up, how you're talking to them, and the demeanor that you're using to say like, oh, hey guys, I think we're gonna do some deadlifts today, so we'll do like 5 sets of that over here, and then then I want you to do like 10 push-ups or something like that. you show up and you
yeah.
talk like that, and they're like, they're not buying it.
Yeah, they're
So
like, "Get out
you
of
have
here."
to show up prepared. You have to be present. You have to say, this is what we're doing. Here's how I want you to do it.
Exactly.
So how does that experience, like learning that, how does that apply to you now working with athletes who are professional athletes who, again, they're paying to show up, but they're like, I could pay any trainer to coach me,
Exactly.
right? So
Yeah.
I want to know what you can help me with, but also you have to show up and coach. You can't just say like, do this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, what a great question. How did working at the military affect how I do my job now?
Yeah.
I mean,
What did that teach you about coaching? Because it's not, it's not just about what you know, right? Like you were
Exactly.
saying, it's how
I think it's the delivery of information too. Like the delivery of how you're saying it, and exactly like you gave the example of, like, we should do some of these today. I wanna get this at some point today. It's like, no, this is what we're gonna do. If you need me to do it with you, I'll do it with you, because I know I can, and I know that you know I can. But sometimes they just want to test me. They're like, "Can you really do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so, kind of learning to not be as challenged as I initially was to getting into this field. Like, oh, you don't think I'm strong enough to be on the baseball team? I'm going to show you how strong I am. It's like, no, like I can do this. Like it'll get done. And so, I mean, with the military, what was interesting is that it's a very contractual place. It's like, if you do this, then we'll do that. If this is the case, then this needs to happen. This is what we want to get done. And so I learned to understand that I'm going to set a foundation first, regardless of what they want to get done. Because if I don't set that foundation first, I'm just going to start setting up walls without a baseline, and then all the walls are going to collapse as soon as I try to put the roof on top of the house, right? To kind of give that example of, it's like, you're going to learn to squat correctly. We're going to use kettlebells for a month before you guys start squatting with a barbell. Because then once you've earned it, you're going to feel like I'm actually rewarding you when you do get to squat with a barbell. And so to kind of put that in perspective of what I do now is, like, I still lay that same foundation with a professional athlete or with my 78-year-old client I just got 2 weeks ago that has scoliosis and has been exercising her entire life. So it's like, I know that you've exercised a lot in your past, but let's make sure we're on the same page with what a foundation of strength training looks like. Let's make sure you know what the 6 main movements are: push, pull, squat, hinge, lunge, carry, core, whatever. Because this is how I centrate my programming and training for you. And if you're trusting me to do this, expect this, and then we're going to have progressions. We're going to add complexity as the weeks go on. And that's exactly what I did at the military base. And it wasn't really until I got to the military base that I was like, wow, this has a lot of value long term. Of like with my professional athletes, we're going to do 4 to 6 week cycles, right? So like with my baseball guys right now, they just finished, their season ended in like October, and they usually take 3 to 4 weeks off, and then they'll start training. So we'll do some kind of GPP, which is general physical preparedness. So generally higher volume, shorter rest periods, just trying to condition the body to tolerate volume again. And then once we do that for 1 to 2 weeks, then I'll be like, okay, we're going to go into a hypertrophy block. This is what we're going to focus on. You want to see me 3 days a week. We're going to do full body, some kind of dynamic plyo, frontal plane, transverse plane stuff. And so a lot of training that they do in season is generally just sagittal plane or like arm work, arm rehab, and just very basic and simplistic moves. And a lot of the times what they've told me is that with their strength coaches for the professional teams, like one of my pitchers for the Cardinals, was like, they don't want me to like clean. Like they don't want me to do or go heavy, because if they get hurt while the strength coach is watching them, the strength coach gets fired. The player's fine. And so the strength coaches are like walking on eggshells all the time, and they're like, no, don't do that. Please don't do that. Like, I need to keep my job. And so now when they're in a private sector and they're seeking out specific training, they can communicate that to me, like, okay, well, we're not going to do barbell cleans, but we'll do like a landmine clean instead. We'll do different variations that can still help you get to the same goal that you want, and still feeling like you're getting what you want. And I'm going to show you also what things that I believe you need and can also help you get stronger, stay stronger.
Like they see more value out of then coming to you than the eggshells that they have to walk on with their training.
Exactly.
Yeah, they can do the things. You mentioned it before. It's like, it's this balance of giving the client what they want, but also like helping them along with what you know. But that's like a perfect example of this is something they want to do, and you can facilitate it in a way that is still safe. And yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, man, it's fun because now that I'm at this point where I've done a lot of education, continued ed stuff, listened to podcasts, had so many conversations with you, had so many conversations with people on my own podcast, and just getting to actually be able to effectively use the stuff that excites me and implement it into my programming, explain it to my clients, and convey to them the dynamics of the rib cage, why internal external rotation of your hips and shoulders plays such a prominent role in how the rest of your body is going to move and how it's going to affect your gait pattern. Because a lot of these people, like, even if they just like to golf or just be recreationally active, you need to understand how the body moves, because otherwise you're just going to keep playing a very technical sport like golf. Regardless of what level you're playing it at. It's like you're going to really mess your body up if you're not aware of your surroundings, if you're not aware of feedback of your feet connecting to the ground, what part of your foot is connecting to the ground, what signal is that sending to the rest of your body, to your hips, what the hips do in response to that. Like, there's so many complexities and levels to that I have clients that actually give a shit about it and that are actually like, oh yeah, tell me, oh, that's why my big toe should stay down. Then it stabilizes my knee. Then my hips can shift into that side of my leg. Oh, got it. Because then, especially like with pitchers, with like loading, like it's just a no-brainer. You need to be able to have stability when you're delivering the ball and trying to throw as fast as you can, because otherwise you're just kind of propelling this mass and all of these guts forward with no awareness of like what's actually doing this. And so that's what's fun, is like I can get them on the table and be like, okay, passive ranges of motion are here. This is where they should be if I pull you a little bit more, or if you try and work your way into it. That's active range of motion. So it's like, how can we like close the gap between passive and active ranges of motion? And then that way, now we can work on strengthening those ranges of motion. But
what do you find it related to like the excitement of your clients? Like, what do you find is the key to them finally kind of unlocking that interest in getting better? Is it the results that they experience? Like, let's say you have, you know, a 55-year-old retired male, if you can retire at 55, amazing. But let's just say you get the retired guy who golfs 3 times a week. He's coming to see you. How do you get that guy excited about all of those intricate details?
About improving his hip internal rotation.
Yeah. Is it because he directly sees it translating into the thing that he enjoys, or is it purely just because he trusts you and believes in you? And
yeah, exactly. I mean, we're not going to get like gynecometer or like one of those like measurement tools out.
Of course.
Goniometer. Thank you. Yes, butchered that.
Gynecologist.
I'm not going to check your prostate to see it. But like, so yeah.
I'm paying how much for this?
It's like, whoa. You want me to bend over and cough? But it was like, no, I'm at.
We got Jacob on that one.
It's not like, okay, you're currently at 10 degrees of internal rotation. Now you're at 30. Let me show you.
Yeah.
But it's more so of like, okay, does it, on your follow through, on your swing, does it feel more comfortable to stabilize yourself in your front leg? You're like, yeah, that makes, it actually does feel way more stable. You're like, that's internal rotation.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, so like, how do we train that? I'm like, let me show you. Like, here's a split squat. Okay, if your back knee is caving away as you squat down, generally that back knee doesn't want to rotate into its hip socket or that femur. So it's like, here's a drill, like try a reach, or like, let's load you on the opposite side of whatever leg you're loading. And let's see, how does that influence how the body moves? So there's a lot of people that I'm sure you and I follow both, or even you two, of like Connor Harris, that couples some of these guys that talk about the influence of contralateral versus ipsilateral loading. So same side versus opposite side, and what that does and how it affects the hips whenever you're loading them, for example, on a split squat. And so obviously I'm not going to go that deep into detail with my clients, but I'll tell them like, okay, if we want to bias, your left leg is on the ground and you're doing a Bulgarian split squat. We want you to feel the inside of your leg. So I'm going to have you hold the kettlebell on the racked position on the same side, and then I want you to reach your free hand forward, right? So when you do that, I want you to imagine having your sternum or your belly button shift toward your lead leg, right? So without telling them, I want your pelvis to move laterally while you're shifting down. Instead, I'm just like,
you're giving real basic like execution type,
like real life examples of like, okay, you know where your zipper is on your pants. Push that toward the big toe of the leg that's down. Like, oh, okay, now I feel like that's actually working.
Yeah.
Like, there we go. That's what's going to bias internal rotation. You don't even have to tell them that. Just be like, I want you to feel the inside leg. Do you feel that? Perfect. Let's do 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the better parts of being a coach, is like you know, you have these people do, let's say, like pretty mundane movements. Like, hey, every time you come in, we're doing couch position, and we're gonna stretch out your quad and your hip flexor and get it to the point where your pelvis can like rotate forward. And you know, you kind of get the sense of they're like, oh, here we go again, kind of thing. But it's almost like you get that win. Like they come in a couple weeks later and like, oh man, like my back stiffness has felt so much better. Or they go to get in that position and like, oh, this is no problem. And it's like, yes. Like it's such a win. I don't know. It feels good.
Oh, it's so
it feels good to
gratifying.
have those wins as a coach that like aren't
100%.
For us that work like I work more like general public. So for me, it's more like, you know, a lot of these individuals want like weight loss and all this kind of stuff. Right. So that is the easy low hanging fruit win. But for me, it's like more excited about the dude. You see how you got stronger here, or you see how your shoulder got more stable, or you see how like you got into that couch position easier this time. Like, let's focus on that because it's like that matters just as much.
That's where your longevity is coming from.
Yeah,
too.
for
It's
sure.
Like not deadlifting 300 pounds for 10 reps.
No way.
That's great if we can do that.
Yeah.
But it's like,
What's the point if your back hurts?
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, to your point, talking about, you know, you asked him about how does he get his clients excited about those things. And, you know, we're picking up on those little wins, but it's just continuing to ask the question, do you feel that? Can you piece together what movement we just worked on and how it feels in your body? And just as a coach, continuing to make those connections, right? And, you know, you do such a good job of that with some complex ideas and some complex modalities that you've learned through different certifications, right? My question for you around the Postural Restoration Institute modalities is how do you when you're working with a client and you know maybe your population is a little bit different because you do work with athletes, but I know you also work with some general population people who just like to golf,
Absolutely.
right? Or just want to feel good. How do you Sorry, I'm blanking on what I was just going to ask you.
Okay. I mean, so to kind of maybe give you some time, like for me, really, I still try to stick with the basics, even with professional athletes or general population. Like you don't need a ton of bands and like moving your body completely different directions all the time. It's fun to do that, but ultimately it's like from PRI standpoint, from Postural Restoration Institute standpoint, they use the example of thinking of the body like a snowman, right? So you have your base, you have your middle, and you have your head, right? They should be able to move together, but they should also be able to move individually. And so that's like a concept that I'll explain to my clients with like a lateral hip shift of like a split squat or something, but also of like for them, if they're doing some kind of a chop, for example, for their abs, like general population can benefit just as much as a professional golfer from a chop. And so for them, it's like instead of moving their head when they chop of like, okay, let's have you keep your head relaxed. Just let the space between your belt buckle and your shoulders move. And let's see how that works. Because ultimately it's like when you walk, if I'm going to walk down the hallway, I don't walk like a refrigerator, right? My hips go forward and back. My rib cage goes forward and back. Your arm swings with the opposing leg naturally. And so those are kind of basic things. But from a PRI scope, the other big thing that I'll tell them is that when your body is like a snowman, that's the easiest way for them to create pressure and stay safe with loading your spine, right? So if my rib cage is flared and my chest is super far out and then my back is now extended, I just tell them of like, think of your discs are starting to do this the further you bring your chest out. And now if you're loading, say like a squat and you're doing this and you have direct force coming down on your discs that look like this, I can just give them that example exactly how I just said it. And they'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that. So what should I do instead?
Yeah.
And so that's where it's like, okay, let's just help you find the top part of your hamstrings and the bottom part of your butt, right? That's the part that helps tilt this pelvis posteriorly. But then it's like, okay, well, you don't want to look like a dog taking a shit. So it's like, where's
split the difference?
where's the middle ground, right? And so that's where that's the coaching cues of like, okay, let's get you to slightly reach your elbows forward without losing height in your skeleton. Right. So now I'm getting the rib cage to draw back without flexing the rest of my spine. And without telling them that, it's like, oh, okay, I actually feel my abs turn on now. Perfect. Hold that. Take a brace. Let's start squatting.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't have to be more complicated than people kind of perceive it to be.
Yeah. But yeah, and that beautiful job answering my question, because my question was going to be why why should people care about those things?
Yeah.
Like versus just like getting stronger, you know, but that was beautifully explained. So when you're communicating these complex ideas, you just said it doesn't have to be so complex,
Yeah.
but you can only like find that kind of simplicity when you understand it as a coach. Right. So
Yeah.
that's again, that's kind of like another point of sales as a coach, right? You just said it's kind of a sales job.
Yeah.
So many people think that they can just walk into the gym and do fitness, even though they don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
You just said it doesn't have to be so complex, but the only way you can get to that simplicity is if you understand the complexities enough to assimilate them back into the simplicity that we're looking for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, someone define that as like that's true genius to be able to take.
You're a genius.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I heard that described because that's something I would say of like a Andrew Huberman is like this dude is the most intellectual guy like I would on the planet, let's say, and he's able to take things that are relatable to the common man, like you know what I mean, and you can say that like, well, if you've truly been there and you've done it and you've learned that thing, then you should be able to break it down so that everybody can understand it. So,
communicating it to if you can't like teach it to a third grader, then
what's it worth?
Then you don't understand it as well as you think you. Like,
sure,
yeah,
dude,
exactly.
And even with some of my professional athletes, I have to talk to them like I'm talking to a third grader. I'm like, man,
yeah. Which is interesting because it's a professional athlete. You'd think that they're like...
No, because they want you to be the thinker for them.
100%. Yeah. That's the big thing is like the similarity, the commonality amongst soldiers in the military and professional athletes is that they both have people constantly telling them what to do, where they need to go, what they need to be doing. Right? With the military, it's like you have formation at 6, you have PT from 6:30 to 8, you have chow from 8:30 to whatever 10, and then you start your day, and then you go home, and then you're supposed to be in bed. Like they never think for themselves. And so and I'm not saying that professional athletes are dumb, but it's like they have
no, they just don't want to be on. It's like
it's like they have physical therapists, they have a nutritionist, they have their pitching coach, their general manager, their head, like all these different coaches.
Which sounds like the freaking dream, if we're being honest here.
I mean, it's pretty sick. Yeah, it's pretty sick. It's fun though, man. I really enjoy getting to convey those complex ideas to clients, because then you said this in actually one of the podcasts that when I had you on mine, of like you just want to give people these like small gold nuggets to where they want to come back and ask more questions, because you don't want to like tell them all about PRI right away of like this is what neutrality is, this is what you need to find hamstrings, you need to find internal of like, well, if you can put your feet against the wall and you can tilt your tailbone up without your back coming off, you're going to be in a really good spot right off the bat. So now let's have you hold that position. Let's have you breathe in that position. Like, well, why am I just breathing? It's like, well, your nervous system assimilates, or your nervous system uses breath to compare of like comfort, right? So think of like if you get scared, are you breathing comfortably? Like, no, you tense up, everything compresses, and then you get shortness of breath. And it's the same thing of like if you're trying to like step under something that you can't get underneath comfortably, your body tenses up and you're breathing, right? I'm sure both of you guys have experienced this with coaching, but like with a new client and they're just like bench pressing and their face gets super red. I'm like, did you breathe that entire set or no? And they're like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to breathe. It's like,
I'm not even thinking about it.
People that are like new to exercise that are like, whoa, what do I do now? Like, what do I do with my hands? And it's like, so it's the same concept of like, okay, feel your feet against the wall. You feel them? Good. Okay, let's pull softly against the wall. Do you feel the backs of your legs? You're like, yeah, a little bit. And it's like, okay, cool. So now just put your hands on your stomach. Close your eyes. Just breathe for 5 minutes, like for 5 breaths. Full inhale, full exhale. Because that'll be another key that I'll see with my clients if they're just like, and that's all I see. I was like, oh man, we got some work to do. Because if that's the biggest breath they can take, how are you going to create pressure? How are you going to be able to stabilize and support your spine if you want to back squat 200 pounds, right? It's like anytime you lay on your back, your stomach caves in and your chest goes up and you can't breathe without opening your mouth. It's like, how would you load that body? And so, again, now how do I get that concept into someone that, okay, if you want to get stronger, let's do this very basic thing. You can't do it very well. So it's like, this is part of my foundation. If you want to work with me, let's make sure that we can master this. I'm not saying I won't get you to squat with a barbell. I'm just saying that there's steps to getting there to get you safely squatting consistently. Like, I don't want you to just hit 315, be in pain for 3 months, and then not see me for a while.
Sure.
Because now you're probably not going to want to come back, even though you
Yeah.
hit the goal that initially you told me you wanted to come in for.
Yes. This guy said he wasn't good at sales, but I'm sure he's learned this over his trajectory that he shared with us. Is like, that is sales. Like,
Yeah.
like you probably don't even have to have a conversation with anybody at this point because of how much feedback and direction and success you're able to give the people you're working with now because of what you know and where you've been. Like, that alone is selling itself. Like, I don't know if you've experienced
man.
that to this point, but I'm like, dude, my clients are going to listen to Nathan and be like, where are you located again? I'm just kidding.
No, not at all, man.
No,
Jumping ship.
same team, baby.
Same team.
Jumping
Absolutely.
But yeah, dude, I mean, that's it. It's like when you can show people like those golden nuggets that they've never thought about before, or that cue that they've never heard before. Like, you shared so many, even just intricate, like the zipper to the left hip, or the like stuff that is, oh, I can connect with that, and oh, that makes sense now, and now I feel this different way, and automatically that gives you credibility to that person and to that next person potentially. So yeah, hats off to you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Appreciate that.
What's I'm gonna go with one. I'm just gonna keep it simple. What is one thing that you think the average gym goer is missing in their routine or in their understanding of fitness in general? And you can give me 2 or 3 if you want, but I wanted to just throw out one. So,
Yeah.
But if you have like 18 things rolling in your mind right now,
Oh, perfect. I
Try
have
to-
my list.
try to like narrow it down to a couple. But what are the things that people are missing in the gym, especially people that are working out by themselves?
I think for me would be like having a plan of attack, or having enough specificity in your goal going into the gym to where it's like, okay, I want to do strength training, or I want to do cardio, I want to do mobility, learn how to move better. Like, I have so many clients that will tell me like, yeah, I just go to the gym and I just kind of do what I know. And so it's like, well, what do you know? And they're like, well, I know bench press. I know the machines. And it's like, okay, well, do you do full body? Do you do upper? Like, I usually just do upper body and then I do lower body. And it's like, okay, that's good. They're like, yeah, but I don't know what to do after that. So to them, like, what I'll tell them is like, well, if you have any level of experience past, we'll even call it 6 months, like, your body can tolerate doing the same muscle group more than once a week, right? The very common thing that I'll hear with clients too is that they just do chest, back, shoulders and arms, legs, and that's it. It's like, yeah, well, you did each muscle group once. So I guess to have more of a specific answer of like, yeah, have a plan of attack for, okay, I know I want to be in the gym X amount of days. We'll call it 2. If that's the case, definitely do full body both days, or start there and then just go slower. I think a lot of people tend to have big goals of like, I want to lose this much weight. I'm going to get in the gym 5 days a week on January 1st. And then you experience failure, you experience loss. And then like, now you don't want to do it again because you feel like you let yourself down. Like, dude, just do 2 days a week, do it for an hour, find some movements. And I don't know if we were already recording or not, but I think you were talking about like, what is validity, or you guys probably did an episode on that. But that was my first episode I ever did on my podcast, was talking about that, of like finding validation through like, okay, if I'm going to buy a program off Jacob from his Instagram page, I want to see like, what kind of posts is he making? Is he talking about like going out on the weekends? Is he holding Miller Lights in half of his posts? And it's like,
or on our podcast.
yeah, right. It's like, I don't care like how much this dude squats. It's like, probably don't want to do like follow that program. Or like, I gave the example of like booty building girls, of like, if all of your shots are just of you in a thong and like you have a phenomenal body, and then you have this program for like $90, but none of your posts are about exercise or any of the movements that are in your program. It's like,
who's making that program? That's
who's making the program?
That's the real question we want to ask here.
Yeah.
It's maddening.
Yeah, so I'd say like have a plan of attack for the week, of like, okay, if you're new to fitness and you want to start learning how to move better, what's your why? Like, how many days a week? Why do you want to hit that? Okay, like your partner wants you to get back into shape. You want to get back into shape. You're pre-hypertensive. You're pre-diabetic. You're stressed. Whatever. Like, okay, perfect. Now we have a goal. How many days a week seems realistic to you? Now let's go from there.
Yeah.
Because if you just go into the gym of like, okay, it's January 1st, I'm in the gym, now what? It's like, well, now what?
Yeah. And you can't, I mean, you can, but you're way more likely to make solid progress if you have a program that you're following.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I default back to the word foundation of like, that's where your foundation comes from, man. If you're doing a different program every single week, then it's like, what's your foundation? What are you building off of?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
How can you add layers on top of something it's just false to me?
Yeah. Yeah, we live in a world where there needs to be this instant gratification. There needs to be this need for like constant variation of things, and it's the real meat or the real like victories are won in consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your program could be 8, 9, 10 weeks long of the same stuff, and that's how we see real results. Like it might be mundane, but like make the most out of it.
Yeah.
Like, dude, push more weight or do more reps or time under tension or like
Or do it better.
do it better.
Yeah.
Practice the damn movement.
Yeah.
Better.
Yes.
Yeah. Freaking align your axial spine.
Dude, bars. Those bars.
Top 3 exercises, not specifically for strength or hypertrophy or anything, but for you, with your background and the clients that you see, what are the 3 exercises that you find yourself using the most? Not personally, but with your clients.
Oh, not personally, but with my clients. Not movement patterns, but exercises specifically.
Yeah, exercises specifically, whether it's to teach someone a position or change posture, or it's the assault bike.
The sled, assault bike,
Sprint.
row.
Rogue Echo Bike Sprints, number 1.
I think showing them like a 90-90 position, I think has been very valuable to me, specifically with their feet against a surface, preferably a wall.
So what is that?
So 90-90 is when you lay on your back and your feet are against a wall and your knees and hips are at a 90-degree angle. And so basically that puts them in the safest position of what I communicate to them as a snowman, of your hips and your rib cage and your head are all in a straight line, right? And so now it should be optimal position if you're going to squat or deadlift or press or really anything ultimately, to have a foundation of, okay, I can breathe in this position, then I can add resistance of put a band underneath their heels, tell them to pull down on the band, that'll turn on their hamstrings, help them find their pelvic floor, especially postpartum women. Like that's the first thing that I'll do for them. It's like put something between their knees to center their hips, pull down on a wall, help them find some kind of musculature turning on underneath there. I've come to find that so many clients are very anteriorly driven, meaning that they're very dominant with their quads and then more dominant with their erectors than their TVA, their transverse abdominis. So when you're in a 90-90 position, you can also manipulate it with the reach, with opening your arms up to stretch out your chest. The reach will help with getting your abs to turn on. You can give them a band to pull up and down to get one side to expand and then do the other side to expand. It's a very effective tool that I come to find that you can do it before your workout. You can do it at the end of your workout.
Okay.
So that would be one.
90-90.
90-90. Second one would be, I would say, like a goblet squat. It's the most basic form that's like, I mean,
Bread and
even
butter.
Dr. John Russin, shout out, PPSC. He's a solid guy. He's a solid source of information, I think. But he talks about being able to squat half your body weight for 10 reps with a goblet hold. So if I weigh 180 pounds, I should be able to squat a 90-pound dumbbell 10 times before I've earned using a barbell. And I think that there's a lot to be said about doing that. I mean, that doesn't have to be the standard for everyone, but I mean, for me with males, it's like you got to at least do that with a 53-pound kettlebell or a 24-kilo kettlebell. And then for women, it's usually a 16. And then that's if they're like, I want a back squat. I'm like, all right, cool. Like if you can do that for 10 reps, hold good position, and it's easy, I think you've earned a barbell.
Yeah.
Because like I talked about earlier, that's what I did with my soldiers, and they weren't too stoked on that. But ultimately, I think it led to much better progress with them of like feeling more comfortable in the squat. Because then you can just reiterate the same cues. So 90-90, and then goblet squat. And then a push-up, I think, would be like the other one. I think it's a very underrated movement that, again, can be varied so immensely for so many different ways. But I mean, to me, even from a PRI standpoint or Postural Restoration Institute scope, is that what they talk about is the dynamics of how the scapula should glide across the back part of the rib cage, right? So if the rib cage is like this, you have your chest and your chest cavity, and then you have your dorsal cavity in the back. So because the scapula is concave, there's a slight rounding to it. If the back of your rib cage is compressed on a concave surface, how is that supposed to move? And I'll explain that to my clients of like, so if you're doing push-ups, like military push-ups most of the time, you're just doing
Chest
this.
out,
Chest
back
out,
arched.
you're going to develop muscle for sure, most likely in your triceps and in your shoulders, and then eventually your elbows will start to hurt. But if I can actually push and reach, get a full exhale, inhale, like it's the dynamics of how the rib cage can move in a push-up. If it's on a bar and you're inclined and it's someone just learning how to do it, or if it's an athlete that I have and I have them do a slow tempo and then protract the shoulders at the top, and they can, it's so good for the shoulder girdle to be able to retract, protract. You can depress the shoulder blade. You can go into a cat-cow. You can manipulate the push-up so many ways that I think some variation people should be able to do.
Love it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Great answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. You got any other questions for him, Brandon?
No, man. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing, dude.
Oh,
Your
dude, of
story, your
course.
journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, your intelligence. It's been awesome.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.
First time I've ever been interviewed, so.
Dude, you were
Probably
ready.
went
This
on a
guy
lot
came
of
in and was like, "What do you
tangents.
guys have your own podcast here?" And then he ended up being the guy talking the whole time.
Do you have anything you want to plug, or what's your Instagram? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, Nat K on Instagram. 2 A's and 2 Y's. NATKAAYY. Yeah, check out that because I have a link tree. I have my podcast is on there. I have a YouTube channel with 150 exercise videos now, and they're all basically under 20 seconds. But
Let's go.
all of the online programs that I offer are also on my YouTube page. So if you don't want to like use it as a structure in my program, you can just get it for free off my YouTube. But yeah, other than that, if you're in Gilbert, don't train with me. You got to train with one of these two.
Cool.
Let's
Thanks,
go.
man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.